state, or even, like I said, more broadly with it throughout the country, where there's a higher demand for this kind of work than others?
Sure. Well, within the state of Wisconsin itself, the kind of the southern half of the state, they're just by the nature of the properties and where they lie, there tend to be more properties and more heavily visited properties in the southern part of the state because there's more population, and so there are a larger variety of positions in the South in the parks program. There are still several very nice, actually really great parks in the North, but there's just not quite as many of them, and they're spread out a little bit more. So just geographically within Wisconsin for the state park system, I would say it also tends to be true if a person is looking to get into this line of work on more the county side of things. Again, based more on population, there tends to be a little bit more opportunity in the southern tier of state or southern tier of counties versus the northern tier. Many of the northern counties have county park systems, but again, just not quite as many staff associated with that. And then regionally, on a national level, the Midwest, there's actually a pretty nice set of state parks with Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio. So state park wise, the Midwest is kind of a nice area for that. Now, if you're thinking on the national park level type thing, generally you're going to be looking to the west. That's where the larger, more complex, more visited parks are. Mm. And so the western states tend to have a little more national park activity. The East Coast as well, there's some smaller, more historic type parks, but the larger, more, obviously Yellowstone and Glacier, those type parks are in the western states where you'd see some more opportunity, especially for those summertime positions. They bring on a lot of people for their busy season as well. So that would be something a person should look at if they would be interested in, is that opportunity to go to the west for a seasonal type of job.
Sure. All right. We can kind of lump these next two together. What advice do you have for somebody preparing for a career in this field? And then the follow-up would be formal education.
Sure. Yeah, well, I think, as I touched on, probably the best, and I would say moving forward, this is going to continue to be the case, the best way to really get your foot in the door and get that experience is to look for those limited-term employee opportunities. So maybe find a park close to where you live, or that might have, some parks have housing available that people could stay in, or some of those options. So looking for those limited-term employment positions where you could work a summer as a visitor service associate, or maybe a maintenance worker, or even some of the other programs too. The wildlife program, as an example, I mentioned before, they hire a lot of summer help as well. Not nearly as many as parks do, but that has tended to, I've seen that be the common trend in my peers, that the vast majority have started in those limited term employee positions and worked our way up from there. That would be my best advice, would be to look for those, especially for those of you that are listening to this, or Kyle, you'd be talking to in college when you have that summer break. That's where we get a lot of our employees, actually, our college students that come for a summer or two, or hopefully we get them early and we get them for three or four summers. So that would be my best advice as far as career path wise. That tends also to be the largest clump of entry level positions that you could look for. Again, some of the county systems are large enough that they might bring some summer help on, but the limited term summer DNR positions are a really good place to start. Another, I guess, just thing to keep in mind too is we really value in the park system is that customer service mentality, problem resolution. So if you've done some work, I mean, you might not think it relates, but if you worked a few years as a sales associate at a retail place, or doing some other kind of customer service, that actually really does tie in well. We do a lot of interacting with the public, answering questions, solving problems, dealing with people that have maybe had a unpleasant experience for one reason or another. So don't just discount yourself. You say, oh, geez, I've only ever worked at Kohl's. That's all right. We will take those folks to help us with that experience as well. And then education-wise, I think certainly the resource management track or the recreation management track is a really excellent foundation to build coming into especially again, state park system. I'm a little bit different than many of my peers. My degree is actually in public administration and political science, which has served me well as I've moved up into more administrative roles, dealing with local units of government that we have a lot of interaction with, or other organizations that impact the park, and budgetary things and things like that. So I wouldn't discount taking some classes related to public budget process, some of the public administration things, public financing or general accounting type classes related to the public side of things, not necessarily like going to be a CPA or anything like that, but that's proven very handy as well. And again, the resource management track is a common one that you see for folks that work in the DNR. And so I think there's a lot of usefulness to that as well, because we do a lot of land management. In the parks program, we don't so much do anymore, as again, some of the changes we're having. Other programs do a lot of our habitat work here on the property, but obviously, especially if a person gets to the point of being a park manager or a ranger where they're running a smaller property, having that knowledge base is going to be useful to deal with your peers or to help manage the property.
Sure. Thank you. Lastly, if folks listening are interested in this kind of work, where would they look to look for job postings or internships?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Within the DNR?
So the best bet would be to go to wi.dnr.gov, and there's a search box, and you can just search employment, or under the Contact Us, which is kind of a weird link, but the Contact Us heading, down in there is a jobs, and there's links there that post any of the jobs that are open. WISC jobs, you can also Google WISC jobs, that all the DNR jobs are posted there as well. And as I mentioned, as we get closer to the summer, kind of the later part of the winter into the early spring is when the parks really make a big push to hire. So that would be a really good time to watch that site for some of these summer employment opportunities that I talked about. And then certainly internship-wise, a lot of the parks and even some of the other programs, there are some formalized internship programs, but if you have an interest and there's a park maybe near where you grew up, or somewhere that you're interested in, just contact the park directly, and you can talk with them, and they'd be happy to see if there's something that might be able to be worked out. Same is true for limited term employment jobs too. You can always call a park directly, and they can get you the application information.
Excellent. That's all I have for you here. Thank you for your time. If you have any last minute tidbits of information you want to share before we shut down.
I'm glad to do it, and certainly, as I mentioned, most of the parks and many of my peers out there as superintendents are happy to talk to folks that have questions about careers in parks or are looking for employment. So don't hesitate or don't feel like you can't reach out to a park, either some of the rangers there or the park managers or superintendents. Most of us are, again, real happy to talk to people that are interested in the field and certainly get information on employment or other volunteer opportunities.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryder.
Yeah, you bet.